We have an insane update for the Toronto Raptors as Ben Simmons has been listed out for the rest of the season, leaving a lot of people to believe reports coming out that the Brooklyn Nets could potentially buy out his contract come this summer. And the Toronto Raptors are now among the favorites in terms of teams that could potentially land Ben Simmons if he's bought out by the Brooklyn Nets. So we'll break down those odds, including a Woj report that does have an impact in terms of a Toronto Raptors draft pick and a whole bunch more in this video. But before we dive into that, folks, again, over 55% of our viewers are not subscribed to the channel. We want to keep you up to date with all of the latest Toronto Raptors news, the good, the bad, and the crazy. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button so we can keep you up to date with all of the latest news. But let's dive into this news as the Toronto Raptors right now are among the favorites in terms of teams that could potentially land Ben Simmons. And this is pretty wild. You know, the odds have been out. The odds have come out after all of the speculation that the Nets could potentially buy him out after his contract is gone. And, you know, at the top of it, there's the Minnesota Timberwolves, right just behind them in terms of it's a very, very close odds, the Golden State Warriors and the Toronto Raptors, followed by the Sacramento Kings as well as San Antonio Spurs. So these are the teams that are favorites to sign Ben Simmons if he's bought out by Brooklyn in the offseason. So again, a few teams listed here. The Ben Simmons trade rumors have been going on, and movement reports, different teams interested in him have been going on for the past 3 seasons. So there's sort of a list, and these are familiar names for especially people that were watching the channel a couple of years ago with all the Ben Simmons hype. Even we, myself and Riker, were on it a little bit, potentially acquiring him a few years ago. But basically, this is a list of teams that have gauged interest in the past and could potentially do this in the future. And the whole Ben Simmons situation right now is absolutely crazy. So let's just dive into what's been going on with Ben Simmons, because again, he's 27 years old, should be entering the prime of his career right now. 6'10", point guard, again, an amazing passer, in theory defender, hasn't really been lately, but a guy that's been, a multi-time all-star, one rookie of the year, was touted as being, a future star in today's NBA. But over the past 3 seasons, since he demanded a trade from Philadelphia, has just not been out there on the court. Didn't play the entire 2021-2022 season, didn't play after he was sort of, dealt there to the Brooklyn Nets. Basically, then with Brooklyn the year after, only played 42 games last season, 7 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, was afraid to shoot there for a while, and then a lot was made this year about how he's going to come back healthy, he's going to come back locked in, mentally ready to go, mentally engaged, and has dealt with some injuries over the course of the season, and, different injury after different injury has gone down, and while there were some moments, while there were some highlights, from Ben Simmons' performances this year, still definitely didn't take the leap, didn't get back to the form he was before he sort of sat out a season with the Philadelphia 76ers and then ended up having back surgery there in the 2021-2022 season. So Ben Simmons is still trying to make that comeback, to said all the right things in the media, and his agent's even coming out saying regarding his most recent injury that, is ruled out for the rest of the season, and his agent takes the blame for ongoing back problems, basically saying that a lot of the sort of injury solutions that have been going down have been attempts at being quick fixes, injuries, sort of procedures that will get him back on the court as soon as possible rather than something that would fix things for the long term. That's essentially what his agent came out and said. And, we can look at the games played. If that's sort of your quick return sort of style of injuries, basically playing how many games has he played? 57 games in the past 3 seasons. That's bad decision making. That's sort of a bad move along the lines of whoever's deciding what type of procedures and movements that Ben Simmons is trying to be doing here now at this point. So basically, he's currently a state. He's currently, his value is going to be at an extreme low point. And you look at his contract right now, next season potentially getting $40 million. If the Nets do agree to a buyout, again, we don't have to worry about this contract because I don't think the Raptors would trade for him at that $40 million number, even though it's an expiring, right? Unless there's insane lucrative draft capital attached to it. I mean, the Raptors would probably getting on a minimum if that buyout sort of ends up going down. So Ben Simmons, again, if he can come back healthy, we can look at what he did early on in his career. He's a beast, and I get the Raptors sort of concerns, what they would have with the injuries and stuff, but you could look at that as a player, as a very low risk, high reward type of guy, low contract. Sure, he might be a locker room cancer, but I don't think he's actually going to be that. He seems to, from the locker room side of things, hasn't rubbed any wrong feathers recently with the Nets. Apparently, some people didn't like how Jacques Vaughn integrated him into the offense a bunch, the past couple seasons when he did play, but from all the things, all the quotes that he said, I don't think he'd be, someone that would come into the locker room and disrupt things negatively. But definitely, if you bring him in, there's expectations. There's more negativity that could get shone light onto your team if that's going on. So you have the concerns with the injuries, you have the concerns with how that potential fit, and then really for the Toronto Raptors, which is different from previous years, maybe not, but we're building around Scotty Barnes now at this point, who's another sort of point forward, big man that can pass the basketball. And maybe those two players could really complement each other, Ben Simmons and Scotty, having two guys that could really have the ball in their hands and facilitate. But Ben Simmons is only really going to be effective with the basketball in his hands. And we have Scotty already at that forward spot that needs, to sort of run the offense. We have RJ Barrett, who can get a lot of buckets, can create for himself a bunch. And you have Emmanuel Quickley, who's the team's actual point guard and is on an absolute sort of burner right now, getting a bunch of assists and facilitating for his teammates. So, there's not a lot of, playmaking need on this Toronto Raptors team here now at this point. So that reduces the sort of need for a Ben Simmons potentially coming in. And then you also have to factor in the lack of shooting because, Scotty Barnes, again, starting off the season was electrifying from behind the three-point line, right? RJ Barrett, he's been shooting the three really well lately, but even with this tenure with the Knicks, we saw him be up and down over the course of seasons, in terms of shooting the basketball. IQ is obviously a great shooter, and then our starting center is Jakob Poeltl right now, who, again, isn't a shooter by any means. So having Ben Simmons in there with those types of guys just doesn't seem like the perfect fit. He's regressed on the defensive end, and I don't know, it's just a little bit too much of a head case for me to really be bought into this making sense. Again, if we pick him up, I'm not going to be disappointed because there is still that high potential upside. Maybe he could just be a beast running that second unit, running that second line, but I'm not someone that's going to be actively out here trying to get on the Ben Simmons sort of trade wagon. I should have played this earlier in the video. The old young socialite watch, it is back here now at this point on the channel. So I don't know. Ben Simmons, again, we'll see if he does end up getting bought out. We'll see what direction he ends up going, but I'm not that eager to bring him in, but I'm not someone that's going to be absolutely up in arms if he does come to the Toronto Raptors. But let's dive into the next topic as we have a Woj update with a major impact on the Toronto Raptors. Draft pick we acquired at this year's trade deadline. As an unfortunate, but draft positionally, it does end up being a positive, but it's still a really bad report, unfortunate report, especially for fans of Canadian basketball and stuff. You never want to see injuries regardless of who you're rooting for, what team, where they're from. But Lil Woj bomb came out basically revealing that Indiana Pacers Benedict Mathurin will undergo season-ending surgery to repair a torn labrum in his right shoulder. And he was a part of the Rising Star. He was the Rising Stars MVP, averaged 15 points per game. He's expected to make a full recovery ahead of next year, but this just sucks. It sucks for Benedict Mathurin, again, a guy from Montreal. I'm currently in Montreal right now, or from Quebec, I think he's from Montreal. But it sucks to see him go down with injuries, having a really good year. And the Pacers do have high expectations after trading for Pascal Siakam coming into this, entering this year's postseason and things like that. But Benedict Mathurin going out is a serious impact on their team. They've been losing some games lately, and the Raptors have their unprotected first-round pick for this season. And right now, at the end of the lottery, we can see obviously the Raptors were losing some games, praying the Memphis Grizzlies get some W's so we can catch them in the Tankathon standings. But the Pacers, they're at the end of the lottery right now. Again, it's more so dependent with the Pacers pick, how they do in the potential play-in, because they're not going to fall out of the play-in, unless something drastic happens. But the Bulls, they're right on their tail. And the Bulls have been playing really good basketballs of late. And if the Pacers fall into that 9-10 spot, right, where they have to win 2 games in order to get into the playoffs, right, that's a situation where we could potentially see them fall out of the playoff picture, ending up their draft pick falling into the NBA's lottery. So if the Pacers fall into the lottery, obviously the Raptors, we're preying on some lottery luck right now in order to keep our draft pick, fall into the top 6. Because if it falls into the top 6, we maintain our draft pick for this season. If it doesn't, it goes to the San Antonio Spurs. So, if the Pacers fall out, there's a world where we could potentially have 2 lottery picks this season. So again, not happy this happened because I'm a big Benedict Mathurin fan, even though I think I pronounced his name. People roast my pronunciation, but I thought it's correct. I don't know. But I'm a big fan of him. It's but the Pacers, I'm rooting for them to lose because I want that draft pick. I want positives along those lines. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. You guys are the best to make it this far. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I'm signing out. Cheers.